Bhava ki Dhamishta Nat Podvakta ki Nama Acharya Shalaharda Vijay Great Vaidikara Shri Sandhi. All glories to Samudabari. All glories to Samudabari. All glories to Samudabari. All glories to Shri Guru. Reading from Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita, a resident of Vrindavan. It was because people weren't interested in becoming Krishna conscious, because they had no time, that back to Godhead had failed financially. Certain sadhus in India were celebrated and influential, but Abai was not amongst them. Of course, the uncompromising preaching that he had learned from his spiritual master, the chopping technique, in which he openly criticized revered politicians and holy men, was not likely to win him favor and patronage. Don't flatter, Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati had said. Speak the truth. And if Krishna is pleased, then you will come out successful. Money will come. And Abai had firm faith in this. That was his outstanding asset, his faith in his spiritual master. He was sure that by following Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati, he would receive his blessings and the blessings of Lord Chaitanya. Although for the last, sounds really loud. Okay. Although for the last 2 years he had followed any path that he had opened for him, as far as it had led, he remained one-pointed, aimed at serving the order of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati. He was confident. Sooner or later he would obtain a substantial backing. He would find a sympathetic audience. Sincere workers would join him. A letter came to Abai in Vrindavan from his disciple Acharya Prabhakar Mishra, and it gave Abai an idea. Acharya Prabhakar, who was in Bombay, was working as a secretary in the Sanskrit department of the Bharati Vidya Bhavan, invited Srila Bhaktivedanta Prabhu to join him for the preaching together, just as in the old days. The founder director of the Bharati Vidya Bhavan was Governor K.M. Munishi, the same governor whose wife had pressured Abai to give up the Radha Memorial in Jhansi. But Acharya Prabhakar had recently established a friendship with the governor, intimated to Abai that the governor might be willing to help. Thus, in January 1957, after assuring Mahat Gopal that he would return and that he would send 5 rupees a month for his room, Abai travelled to Bombay. Acharya Prabhakar got Abai quarters in the facility residence and introduced him to various scholars and religionists. They then attended a lecture by Governor Munshi, What is Wrong with the World? Afterwards, Abai approached the governor expressing his appreciation of the speech, but stressing it would take a spiritual movement to avert the imminent global disasters. Without God consciousness, even Mr. Munshi's work in Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan would be a waste of time. Abai spoke of his interest in reviving the League of Devotees, and he suggested how he might work with the Bharati Vidya Bhavan to infuse the life of God consciousness into the governor's cultural programs. Governor Mushri responded by offering Abai a post as honorary professor of Bhagavad Gita. Abai accepted and gave the governor some copies of Bhatt Godhead, requesting that he read them in his spare time. As honorary professor of Bhagavad Gita, Abai began each class with Hare Krishna Kirtan and then lectured on the Gita, presenting Lord Krishna as a supreme personality of Godhead. But he soon found his post confining. Within the Bharati Vidya Bhavan, he found little scope for reviving the League of Devotees. Then, along with other members of the Bharati Vijayavan, Abai attended the 5th annual convention of the World Academy in Sanskrit at Kurukshetra, where 5,000 years ago Lord Krishna had spoken Bhagavad Gita. India's president, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Governor Munshi, and many scholars and pandits from all over India participated in the discourses. But everyone there had his own thing to say, apart from the conclusions of Lord Krishna. So Abai considered the meeting a waste of time. Since he was not scheduled to speak, since the non-devotional discussions on the Gita disturbed him, and seeing that he saw nothing practical would come from such a theoretical meeting, he left Kurukshetra and returned to Vrindavan. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, Chapter 22, entitled Ritu's Maharaj Meeting with the Four Kumaras, Text 28. Atmanam Indriyartam Cha Param Yad Upayo Api Satyashyasu Upadhovai Pumam Pashyati Nandhaya Atmanam Indriyartam Cha Param Yad Upayo Api Satyashasya Upadhovai Umam Pasyati Nanyada Atmanam Indriyartam Cha Param Yad Upayo Api Satyasya Shaya Upadhovai Umam Pasyati Nandhaya. Ajnanam, the soul. Indriyatam, for sense gratification. Cha, and. Param, transcendental. Yat, that. Upayor, both. Api, certainly. Sati, being situated. Ashyaye, material desires. Upado, designation. By, certainly. Umam, the person. Pashyati, sees. Na anyada, not otherwise. Translation of purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. When the soul exists for sense gratification, he creates different desires, and for that reason he becomes subjected to designations. But when one is in transcendental position, he is no longer interested in anything except fulfilling the desires of the Lord. Being covered by material desires, a spirit soul is also considered to be covered by designations belonging to a particular type of body. Thus he considers himself an animal, man, demigod, beast, etc. And so, in many ways, he is influenced by false identification caused by false egoism and being covered with illusory material desires. He distinguishes between matter and spirit. When one is devoid of such distinctions, there is no longer a difference between matter and spirit. At that time, the spirit is the only predominating factor. As long as one is covered by material desires, he thinks himself the master or enjoyer. Thus, he acts for sense gratification and becomes subjected to material pains, happiness, and distress. But when one is freed from such a concept of life, he is no longer subjected to the designations, and he envisions everything as spiritual in connection with the Supreme Lord. This is explained by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhattacharya Samrita Sindhu 12255. Anashakyasya vishayan yatarham upayan tata nirbando Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchate. The liberated person has no attachment for anything material or any sense gratification. He understands that everything is connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and that everything should be engaged in the service of the Lord. Therefore, he does not give up anything. There is no question of renouncing anything because the Paramahamsa knows how to engage everything in the service of the Lord. Originally, everything is spiritual, nothing is material. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya-lila 8.274, it is also explained that a Maha Bhagavat, a highly advanced devotee, has no material vision. Savara Jangama Deke Na Deke Taramurti Sarvatra Haya Nija Ishtadeva Smriti. Although he sees trees, mountains, and other living entities moving here and there, he sees all as a creation of the Supreme Lord, and with reference to the context, he sees only the creator and not the created. In other words, he no longer distinguishes between the creator and the created. He sees only the Supreme Personality of Godhead in everything. He sees Krishna in everything, and everything is Krishna. This is oneness. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjala Shalakya Chakshu Militena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master is opening my eyes with the light of knowledge. Of my respect, my blessings ascend to his majesty. Okay, this is kind of carrying on quite well from what I was talking about last time I was here, actually. Last time we were hearing all about how the living entity is placed in different bodies. And when the living entity is in a certain body, he becomes under the spell of that body. So one is in a cat's body, for example, they're attracted to chasing things, bouncing on things. Yeah, if one is in a bird's body, then one is always looking around, afraid of being hunted. So we're in this body and we have this certain consciousness. Prabhupada is saying here now, well, in the Bhagavatam is saying here that when the soul is existing for sense gratification, then in these bodies, these different desires are very, very prominent. He is acting and seeing these different designations based on his own sense gratification. So when we're seeing these designations, then we see, this is good for my sense gratification, this isn't good for my sense gratification, this person is my friend, this person is my enemy, this will be a good situation for me and this will not. And we differentiate on that level. And but we're hearing here that one in the transcendental position, they no longer see with that vision. They see as everything connected to Krishna. And I was thinking, wow, how amazing that would be to be relieved of that, of the judgment and the constantly thinking about the self. Is this good for me? Is that good for me? How will that affect me? So if we see everything in connection to Krishna and engage in that in Krishna's service, then we become free from that weight of trying to be the enjoyer, trying to be the controller. Because we know that being the enjoyer and the controller is Krishna's natural position. And when we try to be the enjoyer and the controller, it's very frustrating because we're so bound by our past karma that we only get a certain amount of happiness, a certain amount of distress. And different people are going to be coming into our life as instruments of our karma, and acting in a certain way. And if we're trying to enjoy and control those situations, at every step we're just going to be frustrated. Sometimes it will work, sometimes it won't work, but it's ultimately going to be frustrating. But one who is actually liberated becomes free from that weight of trying to be the enjoyer and the controller, just by seeing everything connected to Krishna. And I mentioned the purport here about the Uttama Adhikari. So it reminded me of in the Ishopanishad 6th verse, it talks about the 3 different kinds of devotees. So the Kanishta devotee, they still very much see designations. They come to the temple. I was just thinking how beautiful Giridhari looks today. I've never seen him with those kind of markings on his face before. His whole face looks even chubbier. I think Tilikini everybody's been feeding him so much over Purushottam Mass that he's got chubbier. But the Kanishta, they come to the temple and they see Krishna in the temple, but they don't see Krishna in the heart of all the devotees. They don't behave properly with the devotees because they only see this is Krishna and they designate this is Krishna, but the other people, out in the world, it's separate from Krishna. Krishna is kind of in the temple. They don't see Krishna in the world and within everyone's heart. And even so much as these designations are very strong. Krishna's in my temple. Even you see different religious kind of groups, like Catholicism and Protestants, for example. They're both worshipping the same God, but there's so much distinction in this is one religion and other religion. They can't see that they're actually worshipping the same God. And even we can understand that there's all these bona fide religions, they're different paths to Krishna. But the Kanishta just sees Krishna's in my temple and that's it, and they're often fighting with other devotees. The Madhyam, they do see distinctions. They see the devotees, they see the innocent, and they see the envious, and they act in those distinctions. So they're friends with the devotees. They try to help the innocent people by preaching, giving them Krishna consciousness. And they generally avoid those that are envious. So this isn't out of envy towards those people. This is, the people, the envious people, they're on their path. And if you try to push Krishna consciousness onto them, they'll become more envious, which is not good for them, not good for us. So when we're preaching, we mainly go for the ripe fruit. So we make those designations, bodily designations, for ourselves and the benefit of others, not out of us trying to be the enjoyer. And also I was thinking here about the devotees, they're acting for Krishna's pleasure. So when we're doing certain preaching activities such as book distribution or all these different programs that we do here at the temple, we're really trying to do that for Krishna's pleasure. And when we try to interact with every living entity for Krishna's pleasure, not for our own, then we're really freed from that, the designations of trying to be the enjoyer and the controller that I was talking about here before. So trying to act for Krishna's pleasure whenever we're about to do a service, if we can just have that intention in our mind beforehand, this is for Krishna's pleasure, not for my pleasure. Of course, when we do service for Krishna, then there is pleasure. The pleasure naturally comes because we're connecting with Krishna. It's not like when we try and please Krishna, then we're going to be denied any sort of pleasure. Actually, we get the highest pleasure from when we're trying to please Krishna. So the pleasure will automatically come. But when we try to please ourselves independent of Krishna, or if we're trying to use Krishna's service to please ourselves, some proper adoration or distinction or Mahaprasad or whatever it might be, then we get diverted from the path of pure devotional service, and we can feel it in the heart. It's not that lightness, that pleasure that we feel when we're really trying to selflessly serve Krishna. We can feel that slight uncomfortableness. And when we see that, we shouldn't just become completely depressed at ourselves and, I should just give everything up. We should just realign ourselves with our intention. Actually, no, that's not my intention. I'm trying to please Krishna. Just come back on track. Try and readjust the mind. Because that's another trick of Maya to take us away from our service, is to say, you're not really trying to please Krishna. Who do you think you are? Do you think you're a pure devotee? So we start to feel guilty, and then we can stop certain services, but we just have to keep hearing and realign ourselves. No, I want to do this to please Krishna. And then, just like it describes that liberation follows a devotee, also happiness will follow a devotee as well. Devotees in Krishna consciousness, they're happy, they're satisfied, and that's actually what attracts people. We can have the highest philosophy, but actually what really attracts people is the happiness of devotees. So we should try and be situated in our service in a happy way, and that actually is one of the best forms of preaching. And then Sri Ishopanishad describes the Uttama Adhikari. So they see no distinctions. They see everything connected with Krishna, which can be a problem in preaching sometimes. So the Uttama Adhikari will sometimes come back to the Madhyam platform to be able to preach. So Srila Prabhupada, for example, he definitely saw everyone as a spirit soul. And he treated everyone with so much love and respect. The women, the children, everybody he met, he engaged in Krishna consciousness. But for preaching, he had to make some distinctions and say some things. But he definitely showed us by his example how we can see Krishna in the world at every moment, through his books, and especially like on his morning walks, actually. He would just naturally be with the devotees, and they'd be walking along, and whatever Prabhupada would see, he could relate it to Krishna. One time he was at a walk by the ocean, and he heard the waves crashing, and he just said, the sound of the waves crashing is the gopis' cries of separation from Krishna. So whatever he saw, he connected it to Krishna in a very transcendental way, and also in a very practical preaching way as well. He was always talking about Krishna to enliven and teach the devotees as well. So one time they were at a park in New York, I think it was, and they were walking along, and Prabhupada stopped by a tree and he looked down at the floor. There was lots of bird droppings. And he said to the devotees, what is this? And the devotees, they always want to say the right answer, so they're a little uncomfortable, like, it's such obvious thing, where it's bird defecation, Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was, yes, but what is it telling us? The devotees were completely bewildered, like, oh, what's the right answer to say here? So they didn't know, and then Prabhupada said, he said the birds, like he said birds instead of birds. This his accent funny, like birds. The birds, even they are attached to their home. You see, there's so much droppings in one place. So the bird is attached to this place in the tree. Even the animals, they're attached to home, family, they have this place. So often we just walk along in life, so much on our head, so busy with our plans and lists of things to do that we don't stop and see everything in the world around us and connect it to Krishna. But Prabhupada, even though he had, a whole international world movement running, he just so peaceful and saw everything connected to Krishna. So yeah, he's a really amazing example. And using everything in Krishna's service. Once there was a photograph of a famous yogi renouncing a pile of money, and Prabhupada laughed. He said, bring the money here, we will use the money. He was showing how actually he uses everything in Krishna's service. It's not money is evil. The love of money and the greed for money changes people's hearts, but Lakshmi itself is to be used in Krishna's service. And actually he said, that we should keep Lakshmi flowing. We shouldn't just hoard money. This changes people's mentality to a mentality of greed. When Lakshmi comes, we should use it in preaching. We should keep the money moving, not hoard it. So he saw every single thing in connection with Krishna. And actually Prabhupada was just always in complete Krishna consciousness, and he coined this term Krishna consciousness to help us understand what this movement is really about. It's about becoming, sounds very simple, but it's about becoming conscious of Krishna. And he set up everything in this society to do that. Even I remember once we were at the morning program, and the person giving class said, in the Nectar of Devotion, it says there are 5 potent forms of devotional service: chanting Hare Krishna, associating with devotees, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, reciting at the Holy Time, and this one. Sorry? Good. So those 5 things are deity service. So those 5 things are in the morning program that we have here. We chant together, we're associating with devotees, we're hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, we're in the Holy Dham, and we're worshipping the deity. So Prabhupada expertly set up everything for us in this devotional service. So he wanted to have the morning program, active service throughout the day, and program in the evening as well. And I've been listening to a lot of Swayam Bhagavan Keshava Maharaj, really amazing speaker. He was saying how we should have 3 kinds of devotional service. A devotional service that we are naturally inclined to, that we like, we can put our heart into. A devotional service that pushes us, it's really kind of stretches us, challenges us, and just the need for the day. So if we're walking past and somebody says, oh no, the person who's supposed to wash the pots, they're not here, can you help? And we take that service as well. So we need the service, that from the heart we can offer to Krishna, that we're attached to and it's natural for us. But we also need that service which challenges us, because that forces us to really pray to Krishna, depend on him. And then when we're doing things outside of our comfort zone, then we have to depend on Krishna. And that's often when the magic kind of really happens, is when we're depending on Krishna in that state of helplessness. I don't know if you've ever had a service which has challenged you, and you just wake up in the morning and you're instantly you instantly think about it, and it's just coming in your mind all throughout the day. So it's not an artificial thing like I have to think of this, I have to, I have to read this to remember that. It's just automatic. You're almost in just anxiety about the service. But because service is non-different from Krishna, we're thinking of Krishna in that way. And then also we're putting all of our, when our complete mind is filled with how am I going to do this service, then there's no space for Maya to creep in. So yeah. And then of course just the humble service that is the need of the day. It just keeps us humble. It keeps the mood of self-sacrifice and keeps the movement going with whatever it needs to be done. And I was thinking how Prabhupada spent so much time translating these books and reading the books and just completely lived the books. And he had this jnana chakshush, this vision of through Shastra. Everything he saw was through the eyes of Shastra. And yeah, in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, it said, "For one who sees me everywhere sees everything in me. I'm never lost, nor is he ever lost to me." And yeah, Prabhupada would often bring up these quotes from Bhagavad Gita, how he could see Krishna in the world. And actually, Mother Urmila and Kamala Sita, they brought out this book recently. Have you seen it? This is all about how we can see Krishna in the world and see Krishna in nature as well. And it goes through how we can see Krishna in the elements in the world, and from Bhagavad Gita, how we can, like Krishna says, things in Bhagavad Gita, like I've mountains, I am Mount Meru, or immovable things, I'm the Himalayas. And through all those quotes, there's different images and different reflections on that, and also throughout the Bhagavatam as well. So they go into their meditations on these elements that we can see Krishna within the world. And it's really far out because, I mean, it just covers everything. And when we think about it, just describing how, Krishna says he's the light of the sun and the moon, and he's air, he's the sound and ether. Like if we actually meditate on this, and if we think of Krishna in these different ways, then we can't avoid Krishna. We can't avoid Krishna consciousness. We just think of Krishna constantly, like he's in the air that we breathe, in the light. We can't avoid, or the light. I mean, we can't avoid breathing. So if we really become conscious of Krishna by understanding how he describes himself in the Bhagavad Gita, then we definitely will be Krishna conscious. Like Srila Prabhupada's, he was saying even a drunk person can become perfectly Krishna conscious if he just thinks, I am the taste in water, and he's drinking a liquid. And if every time he drinks liquor, he thinks that Krishna is, the taste in liquid, then he will become perfectly Krishna conscious. So if one actually follows this, then there's no avoiding. And I was thinking how much do I really do this? How much do I see Krishna in the world around me? And yeah, there've definitely been times where I naturally reflect on this. Like I love to be in nature, and especially like the water. And often if I feel kind of overwhelmed, I'll go to the beach, not Mirabai because it's super wavy, but I just lie in the water. Once I was like floating in the water, and I was thinking, wow, Krishna's the ocean. And I just really felt that I was floating in this water. I was completely supported by the water. And at that moment, I was thinking, yeah, I'm actually completely supported by Krishna all the time. So I really felt that connection between Krishna supporting and Krishna in the ocean. I was thinking, wow, if we could be conscious of Krishna all the time, he's everywhere. He's a fragrance of the earth, the moon, and I was thinking how, also he says he's the refuge and the shelter, and in this book it was talking about how Krishna is the refuge, and how when we take shelter in the material energy as our refuge, whatever shelter we take, whether it's family, house, job, all these things are temporary, they're fallible, they're going to change, they can't give us 100% security. But if we actually take shelter and be conscious of Krishna as the refuge, then we feel that actual, then we feel the actual shelter. And when we feel the refuge of these fallible things, there's like a very small sense. But if we multiply it by like thousands, then we get a very small sense of how it actually is to take refuge in Krishna. And when we do take refuge in Krishna, then we get a deep sense of satisfaction and connection. And because it's in the Purushottamasa, we're reading the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and I thought I'd do one reflection from this book about, in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it says, Krishna says that from him comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. And there's a couple of reflections here. One about our forgetfulness, and the other's about Krishna's forgetfulness. So just as forgetting can embarrass us, it can also save us. Humans are programmed to forget physical pain. We can remember that we are in pain, but we actually can't remember the pain. In the same vein, we generally cannot remember our past lives. It's often difficult to swallow what we go through in this life. So imagine if we were to be able to remember our countless previous lives. To forget Krishna's mercy, so we have to start afresh. Otherwise, it would be impossible for us to try and enjoy in this material world. Similarly, Krishna does not want to force us to remember and love him, because forced love is not love at all. To remember that our forgetting him means he is close by granting us the favor, that deep sweetness. On the higher level of transcendence, Krishna sometimes wants to forget that he is a Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus his Yogamaya potency covers the residents of Vrindavan at Dwarka to facilitate his desire to have loving relationships with him. When Krishna runs away from Mother Yashoda, he is actually afraid of her, not just pretending, because he has forgotten that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, the relationship of mother and son can fully exist. Without this element of forgetfulness, we are unable to relate to Krishna in a truly intimate way. So that got me thinking about the residents of Vrindavan as well. And obviously they're conscious of Krishna naturally and spontaneously. And there's so many stimulations of ecstatic love for Krishna. So when Mother Yashoda sees Krishna's shoes on the ground, she instantly thinks of him, goes into trance. Everything she sees connected to Krishna for Krishna's pleasure. When she sees the cow, she gets the best cows to eat the best grass, so to make the best milk to satisfy Krishna. So every single thing is in connection with Krishna. And the different rasas are attracted to different things that stimulate this love for Krishna. And we hear a lot in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, actually, like Srimad Bhagavad Gita teaches a philosophy. Srimad Bhagavatam shows us the philosophy in action, and Chaitanya Charitamrita shows us how devotees are living that philosophy. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a devotee, Mukunda. He was a physician, and he went to see a Muslim king, and the Muslim king was sitting on a high throne, and Mukunda had gone and was taking his pulse and talking to him about his health. And then suddenly somebody came in with a peacock feather fan and began to fan the king. And Mukunda, he just saw the peacock feather, immediately thought of Krishna and just fell unconscious on the ground. And the king thought, oh no. He thought, oh no, he's dead. And he came down, and then Mukunda came back to consciousness, and the king said, well, what happened? And he said, oh, I have a kind of epilepsy, and so I fall unconscious. But the king, he could understand that actually he was a great devotee. And actually Lord Chaitanya as well, at one point he was traveling, he was traveling with some devotees, and he fell unconscious thinking of Krishna, and some soldiers came along and thought that the devotees had killed him. And then he said, oh, no, he's just got epilepsy. So in the Chaitanya everyone's just, being overcome with ecstasy, and they're just, no, epilepsy, everyone epilepsy. But yeah, the Chaitanya really shows us how devotees are living this Krishna consciousness. Especially Lord Chaitanya, he saw everything in connection to Krishna, and his later pastimes, he couldn't control that so much. Like he saw the sand dunes and he thought it was Govardhan Hill and he would run towards it. And then the ocean, he threw himself in the ocean, was in trance, thinking it was the river Yamuna. And internally he was in the pastimes of Radha and Krishna in the flower gardens. And he was completely absorbed in that consciousness. So we can see from their examples. And also going back to the point about seeing everything connected to Krishna. So using everything in Krishna's service, not seeing things for our own sense gratification. I was talking with Madhura Murti yesterday, and we were coming up with examples of devotees that live that. And in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's Ramananda Roy was an amazing example. And in the purports to this, Srila Prabhupada keeps on saying, this is not something that we should follow, not basically disclaimer, don't try this at home. But Lord Chaitanya had said, Pradyumna Mishra went to Lord Chaitanya and said, can you tell me talks about Krishna? And Lord Chaitanya said, actually, you should go to Ramananda Roy. Ramananda Roy was in more like the Shudra class as a Grihasta. But Lord Chaitanya had said, you should go to him. And so Pradyumna Mishra went to his house, and the servant said, oh, sorry, he's not here right now. And so he was waiting for a long time, and Ramananda Roy, still wasn't coming. And so he said to the servant, where is he? And he said, oh, he's in a solitary place with some ladies, teaching them how to dance and dressing them and massaging their bodies with oil. And Pradyumna Mishra was just like, okay. And so he went back to Lord Chaitanya the next day. And Lord Chaitanya said, did you hear talks about Krishna from Ramananda Roy? And Pradyumna Mishra said no, and explained what had happened. And Lord Chaitanya explained to him the qualities of Ramananda Roy. He described him as just being so fixed in Krishna consciousness that he said, I'm a sannyasi, and if I hear the name of a woman, my body and mind start to change. But Ramananda Roy, he is like stone, he doesn't change. Even when he's teaching these girls to dance for the pleasure of Krishna, enacting these pastimes, even though he's touching them and dressing their body in a certain way, his mind and his body is completely unchanged because he considers himself a maidservant of the gopis. And Prabhupada says quite a few times in this purport, as a warning, this is not on our level. We shouldn't try to imitate this. This is the pure pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. So Ramananda Roy, everything he was doing was for the pleasure of Krishna. There wasn't any sense gratification involved. And the same with Haridas Thakur. He saw everybody in connection with Krishna. When he had a residence and he was chanting alone in that residence, and there was a very envious landowner nearby. He became envious because Haridas Thakur was getting attention and praise from people. And so, Ramchandra Khan, he invited prostitutes to go and try and divert Haridas Thakur's meditation. And he said to this prostitute, you go and enjoy with him and take my constable with you. And when he enjoys with you, then we'll arrest him. And so she went to Haridas Thakur and he was chanting, and he said, oh, sorry, I'm chanting. I have a vow to complete a certain amount of names. Let me just finish my rounds. And so she would sit there and he would chant. And the end of the night, the morning came, and he said, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't finish my rounds. Tomorrow I'll enjoy with you. So she went away and went to Ramchandra Khan and said, he's promised to enjoy with me tomorrow. Let me enjoy with him first, and second time, and I'll take your constable. And so she returned, and the same thing happened that night. And by the third night, she'd become purified by hearing Haridas Thakur chanting. And she admitted what was happening and apologized to him that, I've been hired to seduce you. And Haridas Thakur said, it's okay, I know. I knew what was happening. I only stayed because I could see that you had a small desire for Krishna consciousness. So he actually stayed there and turned in, through his chanting, she became a pure devotee and renounced everything. And then she also became very famous as well. He just told her to stay and chant and worship the Tulsi plant. And so, a little bit like Magrari the hunter, when Narada Muni told him to break his bow, he didn't know what his maintenance would be. So similarly, the prostitute gave up her career and just chanted, but everything was provided for her. People would come and offer respects and serve her. So Haridas Thakur, Ramananda Roy, they could have easily seen other people as objects for themselves to be the enjoyer and the controller. But they used everything instead of seeing those designations, but for Krishna's service. So I was thinking, what's something practical that we can take away from this class today? On the level that we're at, we can try and read Bhagavad Gita and try and understand how we can see Krishna in everyday life. And with our interactions with everyone, devotees, those not in Krishna consciousness, we can really try and, in those relationships, be conscious of not having any enjoying or controlling attitude, but really try and use those relationships to serve Krishna. Engaging in Krishna's service instead of subtly trying to engage objects or people in our own service. And we can, especially do this by reading, associating, hearing these things again and again. We keep on having to hear these things because the material energy is so strong, it always diverts us. But just to try and realign ourselves again with trying to see everything in connection with Krishna and use it in this service. Okay, I'll just read the translation again. When the soul exists for sense gratification, he creates different desires, and for that reason he becomes subjected to designations. But when one is in the transcendental position, he is no longer interested in anything except fulfilling the desires of the Lord. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Are there any comments or questions? Correct. Okay. Shri Bhagavatam ki jai.